What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the FantasyPros YouTube channel. My name is Lucas Wenzel, and today we're going to be talking about 10 players on the waiver wire I am looking to stash ahead of this weekend's slate and ahead of next week's waivers as well. But before we dive into any of that, if you want your chance at winning a signed Jerry Jeudy football, courtesy of our friends over at Pristine Auction, you need to subscribe to the FantasyPros YouTube channel right now and comment below on this video. That's it. That's all you need to do. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize when we announce it. Let's start with Tony Jones Jr., running back for the Seattle Seahawks, who's rostered in only 6% of leagues. Upon both Kenneth Walker and DJ Dallas exiting with injuries in Week 13, Tony Jones came in for relief and notched 9 touches on 11 opportunities. As of this recording, both Ken Walker and DJ Dallas haven't practiced this week, and Travis Homer has been limited. It's not unrealistic to think that Tony Jones could lead the Seattle backfield in Week 14 and potentially beyond. There's a lot of uncertainty in the backfield right now, and you could certainly do worse than having a piece of this run-heavy Pete Carroll offense on your team. It might be worth checking to see if Kadarius Toney is sitting on waivers in your league, because managers could have certainly dropped him after he re-aggravated his hamstring injury. However, he's back at practice this week, which is a great sign. In his Week 10 outing with the Chiefs, Toney saw a whopping 3.35 yards per route run and finished as the wide receiver 14. Granted, that was without Juju Smith-Schuster, but at this point in the season, we want to stash players with high upside and dynamic offenses. In a pinch, Toney could be a home run flex play to put your team over the top if you're competing for a championship. Let's talk about another player who became a Chief mid-season, Melvin Gordon. He's rostered in 36% of leagues, and I like him as a speculative stash this week. The Chiefs' running back room feels incredibly crowded with Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, Ronald Jones, you remember him, and now Melvin Gordon. However, I think there's a potential role for Gordon to see some hodgepodge work here. I don't believe Gordon just walks in and takes over the starting job. Isaiah Pacheco has been playing far too well for that to happen. However, Gordon is 5th amongst running backs this year in yards per reception and 13th in yards per route run. While Jerick McKinnon has been the primary pass catching back, I could easily see Andy Reid delegating some of that work over to Melvin Gordon. Again, a decently high upside piece in a dynamic offense. Gordon should be an intriguing stash this week. He keeps falling into volume by default, but Kendall Hinton makes for a solid deep stash if you're in a pinch at the wide receiver position. As of this recording, Courtland Sutton is listed as doubtful for Sunday's game against the Chiefs. KJ Hamler was placed on IR last Saturday with a setback in recovery from his hamstring injury. And since the Broncos bye week, Hinton has seen at least 77% of the snaps in every game, including topping 90% in 2 of them. He even saw 9 targets in Week 12 against Carolina. His schedule coming up to close out the season is solid as well. He gets the Chiefs twice, the Cardinals, Rams, and Chargers. Chuba Hubbard's teammate Deonta Foreman said he's 95% certain he will play on Sunday against Seattle. But that does leave a 5% chance he doesn't, so let's stash Chuba Hubbard. The fact Deonta Foreman is still nursing his foot injury coming out of Carolina's bye week is somewhat concerning. In Foreman's absence, Chuba racked up 17 carries and managed 65 yards against the Broncos. Now we get Seattle this week though, and they've allowed the 7th most rushing yards and 9th most yards per carry to running backs this year. This could be a move that elevates your team to the playoffs this week if Foreman doesn't suit up. This New York Giants passing attack isn't exciting, but somebody needs to keep catching passes in this offense. Isaiah Hodgins finished as the wide receiver 21 in Week 13 with 5 receptions for 44 yards and a score on 6 targets. The intriguing thing about Hodgins is that his snap percentages have been on the rise the past 4 weeks. 65, 59, 70, 80, and so have his targets 2, 3, 4, and 6. He's not this dynamite splash play, but with Slayton seeing top corner coverage and Wan'Dale Robinson being out for the season, it opens up the door for guys like Hodgins to potentially play a more prevalent role in this offense. The Giants get Minnesota and Washington again in the playoffs as well, where Hodgins could be a sneaky flex play in deeper leagues. Speaking of New York Giants pass catchers, I'm also very intrigued in stashing tight end Daniel Bellinger. He had been out since week 8 prior to week 13, but in his first game back, he played a season-high 97% of the snaps while drawing 5 targets, which was good for his 16% target share. You may not remember it or even be aware of it, but before his injury in week 7 against the Jaguars, Bellinger was becoming fantasy relevant, finishing as the tight end 11 and tight end 7 in back-to-back weeks in weeks 5 and 6. If you've been streaming tight ends this year, or have been since losing Kyle Pitts or Dallas Goedert, Bellinger gets Minnesota and Indianapolis in the fantasy playoffs, who are both top 10 in fantasy points allowed to the position this year. Kenneth Gainwell has scored 8+ fantasy points in each of the past 2 weeks. Now that's not a massive feat, but he's been getting more productive touches in this offense as of late. Even on the season, Gainwell has been productive with his limited opportunities. He's scoring 1.05 fantasy points per opportunity, which is 5th best amongst running backs. Given recent history as well, Miles Sanders hasn't played more than 12 games the past 2 seasons. Now that's not a promise of injury, and I will never, ever wish that, but Gainwell could step into a more sizable role if Sanders were to miss any time in the playoffs. I rarely advise rostering multiple defenses throughout the season, but when it comes to the fantasy playoffs, I'll borrow the words of legendary coach Paul Bear Bryant. Defense wins championships. If you're competing for a title this year, the Chiefs should help elevate you to a first-round victory because they play the Texans in Week 15. Now, we can't get too far ahead of ourselves in the playoffs because it truly becomes a weekly game. But in the Week 17 championship, they draw the Broncos, who, as we all know, have been putrid on offense this year. Now's the time where you can start looking ahead to handpick defenses that are playing poor defenses in the fantasy playoffs. Lastly, Chigozie Okonkwo came onto the scene last week, finishing as the tight end 8 in PPR formats. He played a season-high 58% of the snaps and has now seen 5 targets in back-to-back weeks. He's averaging over 11 yards per target, over 18 yards per reception, and is running a whopping 3.57 yards per route. Looking ahead, he gets the Jaguars this week and the Chargers in Week 15, who are both top 13 in fantasy points allowed to the position this year. Tight ends in fantasy football are a desolate wasteland, so I am always willing to stash glimmers of hope if I'm streaming the position. Alright, yo, before I get out of here, remember, if you want your chance at winning a signed Jerry Jeudy football, courtesy of our friends over at Pristine Auction, you need to subscribe to the FantasyPros YouTube channel right now and comment below on this video. That's it. That's all you need to do. Might make a great holiday gift. We'll be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize when we announce it.
Thanks for tuning in to the FantasyPros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at FantasyPros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.